Michael Andretti is moving on with his plans to establish a second American Formula One team and has applied to enter the grid as the 11th constructor for the 2024 season. The rest of the bosses at F1 have already put their views on social media and in the interviews, and they are not happy about it. Why does Andretti want to make another team? Does the company have enough revenue to handle it? What issues will this new team face, and why are most team bosses against the 11th team? Let's dive into these questions. About the 11th team. Michael Andretti acknowledged to Motorsport.com that he had submitted an application to the sport's governing body for a new team in 2 years, but declined to disclose further. Last year, he was in talks to buy an 80% stake in the Sauber Group, which owns the Alfa Romeo Formula One team, but principal shareholder Finn Rausing refused to sell to the American. Due to the recent Concord Agreement, purchasing an existing F1 team is now more complicated, since it helps the current 10 teams maintain solid financial stability, reducing the opportunity for interested parties to pick up a bargain in terms of a franchise. There's also a $278 million entry fee as a part of the Concord Agreement, which is distributed among the 10 clubs as a delusion fund to protect their worth. 11th team joining F1. Mario and Michael Andretti want to introduce their Andretti Global team to the grid in 2024. The goal is for the team to feature American drivers and an American-built vehicle, but other groups argue that the prize fund system needs to be changed to allow for an 11th team. Mario Andretti, a former Formula One world champion, claims that all the components are in place to bring his iconic motorsport brand to the grid in 2024, while current teams are hesitant to admit the 11th team due to economic issues. Andretti and his son Michael, a former Formula One driver, have managed highly successful single-seater teams in the United States and attempted to establish Andretti Global in F1 for a long time. What other F1 teams think? The president of Formula One owner Liberty Media claims that the current 10 teams are locked into their grid positions and that there are no plans to increase the number. As Mario Andretti and his son Michael continue to persuade teams to support their aspirations to enter Formula One, Greg Maffei made the remarks. In 2016, American team Haas was the penultimate newcomer to the grid. Rivals Manor folded at the start of 2017, leaving only 10 teams on the field. Following Liberty's ownership of Formula One, Maffei said the value of those teams has increased since they were established as franchises. There have been as many as 15 or 20 teams on the circuit in the past, he told Bloomberg. It was down to 10 when we started the sport. Manor, the 11th team, went into receivership in the United Kingdom, declared bankruptcy, and was sold for £1. Now, because they're all franchised, the bottom team is worth at least $400 million, if not more. And I believe you hear figures like $1 billion for a team or $2 billion for a team. The attracted investment as well as interest. Any rise in the number of teams, according to Maffei, is unlikely to happen very soon. We may expand the teams over time, he remarked. I don't believe it is an urgent requirement. Many people want us to do it, says the author. The majority of them want to invest, but we haven't felt compelled to do so. He suggested that adding teams to some locations could cause logistical issues. In some circumstances, there are issues, he stated. What's the issue with F1 adding the 11th team? Andretti must persuade the sport to authorize the 11th team because none of the 10 franchises is for sale. The problem for the present teams is that the prize budget is now shared among the 10 entries, so adding the 11th team would practically cost them money without changing the format. It makes perfect sense to say that the 10 teams or franchises have intrinsic worth, which you dilute by increasing the number, Red Bull CEO Christian Horner remarked. Toto Wolff, the CEO of Mercedes, stated that besides paying a $200 million entrance fee, Andretti would have to bring in additional value. If someone can demonstrate that, we should all be sitting around the table cheering for them. However, this is yet to be shown. He said, Formula One is valuable since there are only a few franchises available. You don't want to dilute that value just by adding more teams. Christian Horner about the 11th team. To protect existing entries, Formula One owner Liberty Media should lower its shares of earnings if the grid grows beyond 10 teams, according to Red Bull CEO Christian Horner. Porsche, Audi, and the Andretti organization are among the key businesses interested in entering F1 in some manner in the following years. However, F1 has established itself as a closed shop to increase the franchise value of the existing 10 teams. Therefore, all interested parties have been encouraged to collaborate with or buy into a current team. Following Andretti's public indication of investment in a 2024 entry, the FIA stated in February that it was not in position to consider a new entry. Andretti is adamant about moving moving forward with its initiative, and Liberty Media chief Greg Maffei appeared to open the door to expanding beyond 10 teams this weekend. When asked about the race, Horner responded, "Naturally, for the current signatories to the Concord Agreement, it makes entire logical sense to suggest that 10 teams or 10 franchises have intrinsic worth, and you dilute that by increasing the number." F1 Managing Director about the 11th team. In 2019, F1 Managing Director Ross Brawn stated that any possible new teams would have to wait until the new rules were implemented. But now that the Concord Agreement is in place, it appears that interest may pick up again. Furthermore, the FIA will surely wish to prevent new teams from suffering the same fate as HRT, Lotus Caterham, and Virgin Manor Marussia, which all entered and quit the championship for 5 years from 2010 to 2015. Haas was the most recent team to enter Formula One, becoming the first American team in 2016. Adding another team to F1 will be a big challenge, but F1 has always learned from tough challenges and came out even more robust. So this time, let's see what happens as the excitement of F1 racing continues.